You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! Get ready for a scorching thrill ride with best-selling author Pamela Fagan Hutchins as she joins us to talk about her newest release, Her Burning Lies. It's a gripping blend of secret, suspense, and southern heat. You will not want to miss this fiery episode of On the Air with Florenza. And please put your hands together and welcome Pamela to the show. Thank you so much, Pamela, for joining me on this episode of On the Air with Florenza, where I have with me today Piper. Um, she's more interested in your book, I think, than anyone. So
I love Piper.
yes. Now, before we get started, as is my tradition, we're going to toast to a fantastic show. And I have a little blush spritzer thing going here. I don't know what it is. I actually just grabbed some bottles and poured. So,
That's nice. I've got a little Sancerre. It's like a Sauvignon Blanc. So,
ooh,
little French
cheers.
Sancerre. Cheers to you.
Mm. Oh, that's pretty good.
That's
Even though
good.
it's early, but a little wine to brighten up the day is always in order.
I agree.
I do want to dive right into your newest release. And we are talking about Burning Lies. And
Yes.
first off, I love that title. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with the title and give us a snippet of the book. But I do have some great questions lined up to
Awesome.
kind of dive a little deeper.
Cool. Well, Her Burning Lies was actually a title that my editor came up with. And she came up with it because I envisioned a book where, well, and let me preface this by saying these Delaney Pace books, the weather, the geography, the rugged outdoors, the mountains, is as much a force on the crimes and solving them as anything else in the book. So for each book, I pick some natural phenomena and then use it to just torture all the characters. And in this book, I chose fire. We have a fire season because it gets really low humidity in August. It's a very, very dry climate and prone to wildfires. So I envisioned a book that involved fire. And she envisioned a book that involved lies. So she tells me the title when I've just given her a teeny little bit of an outline, and it really influences what I write.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there with a barely a pitch, and she tells me a title she wants, and it's like, oh, I can do that. I could so do that. And so this book became about our Delaney Pace, our detective Delaney Pace, who's a Wyoming deputy. She's really a vigilante with a badge. She's kind of a scofflaw that just happens to wear a uniform, and it's in fire season, and she finds a body that's been killed in a grotesque way with a sword that looks medieval. And as the book unfurls, there are more dead bodies, young women killed in that same way, and she has to dig through the lies to find the killer. So that's
Ooh,
the story in a nutshell.
that is it. Now, I love that your books are standalone thrillers and that you don't have to read the others, but it helps when you still read the others because you kind of get this flow of what's going on. Of those that you've already written, do you have a favorite?
I think my favorite of this particular series is probably the one that isn't out yet. It's the one I'm writing that's going to be out in the fall. So people have to keep reading the series to get to it. I can't even tell you the name. But of the ones that are already published, I probably liked Her Burning Lies best.
Okay.
At the same time as I was writing it, which I started writing it in August in the south of France. Fire broke out near our house in Wyoming and consumed 100,000 acres and
Oh,
literally
whoa.
almost like we had hot shot fire crews protecting our house for days on end. They were awesome. And the whole town was at risk. The water supply was at risk. The national forest was greatly impacted. And so there was this horrible congruence of what was happening there and happening in my book. In fact, I was really worried. I wrote it into life and felt very guilty, but I know that
Yeah.
I don't have that magical power, but still. And so writing it for me became a very powerful emotional experience.
Hmm.
At the same time as I wove in a plot that was impacted by living in the south of France, with some um, factors related to the plot that had to do with people from all parts of the world coming to Wyoming in the way that the world has come to Wyoming in
Yeah.
terms of me here in the south of France. So it was really, really fun to write and pull all those together.
Of the other books in a series that deal with the natural elements and the phenoms of nature, has any other title so closely affected you the way that Her Burning Lies did?
It really hasn't. Her Forgotten Shadow, which was number 4, arose because we had been in danger of our house being in the line of potential mudslides in the spring. We
Mm.
had a really heavy winter, but it never happened, right? And so I wrote about those mudslides and what it would be like, having never experienced it. But our home was actually consumed by wildfire 18 years ago. And so even before these fires happened at the same time I was writing it, the reason I came up with the plot is because we were living in a house that had been the whole property had been burned down except for the house, two
Wow.
cabins and two barns, and all the forest burned down by a wildfire, and the house survived. So anyway, this one did emotionally get me in a way
Yeah.
that the other natural phenomena did not.
Mm. Now, did that change having written about fire and then having fire manifest itself the way that it did? Did that change the element that you added to the next book?
Well, yeah, I basically put that book way outside our county. It's the only one where I've said, "Hey, let's put this on somebody else."
Just in case.
So, yeah, yeah. So I can't say too much about it
Right,
yet,
right.
but let's just say that it travels afar because I was like, we don't want those natural disasters in our backyard.
Just in case I had
Yeah,
the way of magical pinning
I
that into
know.
existence. Now, you said briefly that your background as an attorney and an investigator, that it adds this level of authenticity to your writings. How do you believe that these experiences carved out the way that you tell stories?
I think that for starters, attorneys are storytellers.
Hmm.
While the truth is at the core of what they're presenting, you advocate on behalf of a client, right? And so you're spinning the best possible story that you can to convince somebody else of the truth of your version of the facts. And so you're naturally developing yourself as a storyteller. And I'd been a closet writer since I was like in third grade.
Uh-huh.
So between that and the fact that as an investigator, I was regularly cranking out reports that were 30, 40, 50, 60 pages. I mean, over and over and over. Writing and being expressive just was something that was a really well-developed muscle, if you
Hmm.
will. And
Hmm.
the storytelling from, I think, being an attorney and being that closet writer also came pretty naturally.
Had your writing emerged earlier than it did, how differently do you feel your style of writing would have been had it been post investigator, post attorney?
That's a really good question and one I've never been asked before. So you are great. The I think it would have been more chick lit. I think that if
Mm.
I had written earlier, I had a real love for things that were irreverent and punchy, and I don't know if I would have delved into the crime. But as I matured and seasoned, and I thought more about what real people have at risk when bad
Mhm.
things happen,
Mhm.
that leaned more towards crimes and solving them and the people in your lives being at risk. And so that really became the sweet spot for me.
What would younger Pamela say to Pamela today in terms of where you are with who you are?
I think she would say, "Oh my gosh, you did it." Um, really, every element of my life, there are no complaints. I have two great kids, three great stepkids, and a niece and nephew. I've got my husband, who we've already discussed, is like,
Mr. Perfect.
he's Mr. Perfect. And, we're living in Wyoming and Maine and in the south of France, and I've written 32 novels and people read them. So it's like,
Yes.
what else could I possibly want?
Yes.
And I constantly pinch myself and remind myself to be grateful and remind myself not to jinx anything. So we're knocking on wood here because I really am. I think younger Pamela would be like, oh my gosh,
She is
I
living our
can't wait for that.
dream.
I can't wait for that
Nice.
to happen.
Now, your book, Her Burning Lies, has received glowing reviews. The readers are praising its suspense and its character depth. How do you um, channel or focus on or include readers' opinions or their reviews into what you do?
That's a dicey question in the sense that I do not personally read reviews. My
Mhm.
husband used to read every single one of them. My editor still reads every single one of them. So what happens is that she will occasionally send me a review and say, "This is a theme we're getting." So, for instance, in the fourth book in the series, it included Leo running for sheriff, the idea of Leo
Mhm.
running for sheriff. And there were reviews coming out, Leo for sheriff, Leo for sheriff. Hi, Piper. And because of that, I thought, well, people are really getting into that storyline. And they really loved the will they, won't they, between
Mhm.
Leo and Delaney. So knowing what people enjoy does matter to me. It really does at the same time as I like to surprise them.
Yeah.
And I can't always give them what they want. Deferred gratification
Yes.
sometimes, but we can't always do that.
Yeah.
But you know what I find about reviews is that if you believe the good ones, then you don't grow. And if you believe the bad ones, then you
You,
get really hung up on them and you lose self-confidence. And so I just try to go with the general idea of that people still want to read them. And other than that, take a deep breath and look away from the bug light.
yeah. Yeah. And that's so true. That is so true. And that's a healthy way of incorporating your readers' thoughts into what you are doing.
I was going to say, as you're petting Piper, I have a dog drinking water behind me that I'm petting, trying to get her to be quiet, and one I'm petting with my foot. So it's like I've got both, all hands and legs going.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about Leo and Delaney, their relationship has been a roller coaster. In the
Yes.
installment, the bond faces new challenges. How did you approach building this chemistry between the two of them while at the same time not rushing to get to where your readers want you to go?
The not rushing is difficult because they have such great chemistry from the beginning. And I like to think that while Leo is very, very different from my own Mr. Perfect, that having a really, really good relationship, which even at the ripe old age of 58 is still exciting and, all the things that you would want really helps me write relationships that have some sizzle. Even if there's nothing going on between the characters except that electricity between them. So I feel like they have it. And I feel like the readers think they have it. But we just can't give it to them, right? I mean, when we first started this series, my editor said book 5 at the earliest, Pamela. And then we got to book 4, and she's like, I'm starting to want them to get together too. And I said, you told me book 5. We cannot go before book 5. So I'm not going to tell them whether or not book 5 is actually the one, but I will tell them that we're trying to stretch it out as long as we can because there's excitement in
Yeah.
the buildup. There's excitement in the wanting, even when you think back on your own relationships. Once you have that relationship, it's fantastic, it's great, but you still always look back with nostalgia
Yeah.
to the excitement
Yeah.
of the buildup,
Yeah.
right? So
Now, do
we
you feel that having seasoned characters, right? Some characters with some life behind
Right.
them, that you have the ability to work on character structure in such a way that if they weren't, you know, 25, 23, 32, where that instantaneous, microwave life is present.
Yes.
So I, l-
That is also an awesome question. And I say this with all great love to my kids in every age that they've been, that when I think about writing, I love mature characters. I
yes,
love characters that have had enough life behind them to feel all the feels, the pain, the longing, the love lost, the loss of people in their lives that are important to them.
yeah,
And that I think there's something beautiful in that and that depth. I love my kids at all ages, but I used to say I could not write a teenage girl.
yeah,
And I do write teenage girls as supporting characters. And I couldn't write a 20-something girl,
yeah.
even though the younger Pamela would have wanted to. But the 40-year-old Pamela immediately understood that the best of my life be started at 35, you know, and it just got better from there. And I wanted a mature woman. And so Delaney starts this series at 35. So I'm putting her at perfect and we're going to hang in there for as long as we can.
What's been some of the feedback in having a character who is like I'll be 61 in a minute, right? And so I am loving reading something with somebody with some life lessons that's backing up these decisions, and they're just not so spontaneous and reckless, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
work with
Yes.
me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's so many books where I'm like, how can you be so stupid? Quit making these stupid decisions. And I know that when I was their age, I did too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but the feedback has been great. I am not shooting for the 20-something audience,
yeah,
although I hear from a lot of
yeah,
20-something readers that are, I guess, mature beyond their years. But I find that the bulk of readers out there
yeah.
are not the 20-somethings. They are people with a little more seasoning, a little
Yeah.
more gray hairs, and so they appreciate somebody that, while it may still be looking back on a different time of their life, is
Hmm.
not a time in their life in which they felt they were foolish or reckless or out of control.
Yeah.
That it starts to be a woman who owns her space. And, if you'd told me at 25 I didn't own my space yet, I would have smacked you upside the
Yeah.
head and said, I am woman, hear me roar. But still,
Hmm.
I can look back on that woman and say, my gosh, girl, you were doing great, but you were still 25. You've got the
Yeah.
best yet to come. And so it is with great love, respect, and affection that I say to all of my 20-something readers, the best is yet to come.
Yeah. And I think that truly is so important right now, that you're giving all of your audience, right, from 18 to 60,
Yeah,
something to sink their teeth into, that if you are still in your careless, reckless years, yay, go you. I mean, I had them too, although
yeah.
not really. Um, that it gives them something to look at. It's not necessarily a mirror, but it is a window or a sliding door to say,
Right.
this is really what you have to look forward to. And this is the beauty of having that experience that you're getting ready to receive, and to know that baby life isn't over at 23, like for real, for real.
Isn't it crazy how I remember even thinking it myself, when I was about to turn 30, oh my gosh, I'm old. And it's like, I had no idea that I wasn't even there yet. I
At
was
all.
30 and I wasn't even where the good part started, you know?
The juices weren't even flowing good yet, girl.
Right. And who cares about wrinkles and cellulite? Life begins, man. And I think that we're in a culture where we celebrate youth and youthful beauty so much that we don't understand the real beauty of what's to come. And
Yes.
so hopefully some of the younger readers can see that and anticipate it and realize that embrace the now, have
Mhm.
fun with the now, be your authentic self now, but golly, it's going to be good.
The best is yet to come. It sounds so
Yeah.
cliche, but it really, truly is.
Yeah, I believe it.
Now, we talked about the elements being such an integral part of your story, but also that small town feel in terms of the setting itself.
Right.
How important has that been in terms of telling your story and building your characters?
It's been really integral for a couple of reasons. One is that in a small town, it's harder to hide, right?
Oh, tell
So
the truth.
yeah, yeah, Chagrin Falls, wherever you, yeah, yeah,
Honey, and
Bighorn,
I'm
Wyoming.
at one point, my husband and I were the only people who looked like us when we first moved in 4 years ago.
You
Hide you
know something,
can't.
exactly hide you can't. Um, I hear you. In fact, you would be the only people that look like you in Bighorn, Wyoming, where I live. Sheridan down the road, you'd find more people that reflected the person you saw in the mirror.
Uh-huh.
But because of that, it it's impossible to hide. And also, people that come in and that are new are different.
Yeah.
There's sometimes some resistance in both
Hmm.
ways, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
people that are new, there's some resistance to how things were there. The people that were there, there's some resistance to don't come in and change what we love about where we are. And there's valid points of view in both. And I love that push pull. I love in this series and especially this book that Delaney, as a native Wyomingite, is having to come to terms with that other people are legitimately allowed to live in her space too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not just the people that have been there for 5 generations, that she can love and embrace someone like Leo, who just
Yeah.
moved there from California, even though originally that was off-putting to her. And so the small town piece of that has been fun to play with, a lot of fun to play with. Probably more fun than it is in real life.
Nice. And I love that. Also, one of the elements of these stories too, you tap into trauma or past, and you give the characters a depth that does include the trauma while they don't remain in the trauma. How are you
Right.
balancing giving them a past while at the same time giving them a present, a future, and a hope?
Well, I believe in hope, right? And I know that not everyone that's faced traumas is able to move past it in the way that some of my characters have.
Mhm.
But I also know so many people that have, right? I mean, I don't want to say all of us because that's certainly not true, but most of us have experienced some kind of trauma or loss
Absolutely.
or
Hmm.
something that has led to who we are today. And
Hmm.
so, what I look at it as is who would this character be today if these things happened to them in the past? And if they'd had the right people intervene at the right times and they had by the grace of God, made some good decisions that led them to recovery, that led them to being able to hold their head up and walk along. But what wounds would they still bear? What
Hmm.
scars would they still have? And
Hmm.
how would that mess up their current life? Even as they're doing pretty okay, but the past comes back to haunt them.
Yeah.
And you see this over and over with Delaney in the series that she's her own worst enemy because of past loss, past desertion. And then also in this particular book, we have a character that's facing significant, serious past trauma. And we've only known that person as a fully realized adult human in the series up till now. And we get to see this glimpse into the past and understand more about sometimes the veneer we put on
Yeah.
to cover the pain, to cover the past. And anyway, it's a balance, right? To really respect how hard some of the things that I'm writing about can be and how hard it is for people to get past them at the same time as believing in hope and believing in overcoming not by yourself but with all of the resources that life hands you.
Nice. If you were to give yourself three hashtags, not just as
Mm.
an author, but in totality of who you are, what would your three hashtags be?
Oh my gosh, Florenza. Um, I want to say animal lover is one of them. And one of them is going to be blessed.
Yeah.
And the third is going to be tightly wound. I'm a little tightly wound. I was going to say hermit. Um,
Uh-huh.
but because I am a hermit, but I think my husband's upstairs and I picture him napping right now, going,
Yes.
oh, he's laughing now. Tightly wound. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
That's better than calling you a tight ass.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Or the other things I get called. Believe me. I once had a really cool person I worked with, shout out to Brenda Aloyo, tell me that I reminded her of the Energizer Bunny going down the hall, which was a nice way of saying, you're trying really way too hard.
Slow down, sister.
Slow down, sister. The rest of us are tired.
Yes, you're making us tired just watching you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how everyone in my life feels.
Oh, now where are
Tightly.
the listeners able to engage with you and follow you and learn all things Pamela?
I think that the place I'm most active is my Facebook page. So, Pamela Fagan Hutchins, if you just type it into Facebook, you're going to come up with my author page. If you come up with my personal page, I'll probably accept your friend request, but I don't post there much. And I post all about my writing and my life. I post about hashtag our French year,
Yeah.
living over here in France and things like that, as well as all the books and specials and deals that come out on the books. You can sign up for my newsletter there. But for people that just want to get a one and done, my website,
Okay.
pamelafaganhutchins.com.
Speaking of deals coming up, you have something that the listeners are able to tap into right now and tell us a little bit about that.
I am really excited. The first book in the Delaney Pace series, Her Silent Bones, is free and is the BookBub featured deal today. And so you can go out, snag that one real quick, and then decide whether you want to dive into the rest of the series, which of course I hope you
Of
will.
course you do. Of course you
Of
will.
course you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've come to the part of my show that I call Last Call. And it is a series of just a few rapid fire questions designed to not think too much, but just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. So
Okay.
we're gonna take a drink, a sippy sip,
Okay.
more like a gulp. These are so random, but here we go.
Okay.
What's your go-to trail snack when riding through what is this?
Nowheresville.
Snowheresville. Okay.
It's Nowheresville. My go-to trail snack, I think is usually nuts, cashews or pistachios or something. And of course, then that leads to dehydration. So lots of electrolytes with me as well.
Wonderful. If you could swap lives with any fictional detective for a day, would you and who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Um, I think that it would be, mm, oh, well, let's just go with. Um, How bad am I doing here? I'm thinking of 1,000 right now and not able to narrow it down. I listen to audiobooks like nonstop. My husband will tell you, take the earbuds out, Pamela. And I just finished listening, so I'm going to go with I would like to be okay, I'm going to go with Lucas Davenport for a day. Lucas Davenport is
Okay.
the John Sanford Prey series, and he is a homicide detective in Minnesota that also gets to work as a U.S. Marshal. And I love all of his very cool, and he's independently wealthy. So, I think I'll be Lucas.
I think that's a great choice. You need a sidekick, let me know.
You're
Speaking
in.
of being tightly wound, what is your favorite way to unwind after a stressful day?
Um, I like to hug my husband first.
Oh,
It's just like plugging into a charger. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I feel all better. I like to walk with the dogs. And, there's nothing
yes,
wrong with a glass of French wine.
at
Nothing.
all. Nothing at all. Which song gets your juices flowing? What pumps you up?
Okay. I I'm a Swiftie. I'm saying I'm a Swiftie and the whole Reputation album. I
Nice.
it's Are you ready for it? Bon, bon, bon. So anyway, when I really want to feel invincible and pissed off at the world,
Uh-huh.
and I play Reputation, the whole album,
The
start to
whole
finish
album.
in order. Yeah.
And see, Eminem is my guy when I really want to. It's just something so,
Oh my
oh,
God.
especially his Lose Yourself is such
Oh,
a
it's so good.
desperation. I am not going back to that old life, come hell or high water. That, oh, that's when I just know.
It is so good, and I love the one he does with Rihanna. And I
Yes.
can't. It's
Burn.
power. Yes, it's so powerfully emotional and
Yes.
damaged. And
Yes.
anyway, so yeah.
Yes.
See, if you, it's kind of like would tell me what fictional character you'd want to be. You get me started on music. I've written three protagonists that are performing musicians because I just music is so.
Yes,
Anyway,
it is
good
so
choice,
powerful. It's
Samantha.
a
Good
different
choice.
medium of storytelling, but
It
it
really
gets into
is.
your bloodstream faster,
Mm,
right? It's like that
definitely.
crushed peel. You
Yeah.
just okay. If your pets could talk, what's one thing they say about you that no one else knows?
Hmm. Oh my goodness. They would say, tough girl baby talks. Oh, my sweet little baby, come here. You know, I've never even talked to my kids that way. But my
Oh,
big fluffy sled dogs, I've got Malamutes. They're big, muscular dogs and they pull sleds. I mean, these are working dogs, not in the
uh-huh.
south of France, but
Yes.
elsewhere. And they're my little darlings. So.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to having you come back when the super secret next release is available.
Florenza, this has been so much fun. You're so good at this, and I really appreciate you making me a part of it.
Thank you.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.